Okay, I just muted you. Can you unmute yourself?
Like, it's like, do I talk on the podcast? I don't know. Like,
Hello, my sweet darling, and welcome to the F Your Fierce podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Monique Menard. I'm an award-winning actress, plus-size model, singer, audiobook narrator, coach, and writer. Ooh, and creator of The Art of Blowing It, which can be found on YouTube. Yes, I know, I got a lot of hyphenates, so I get it, which is why I bring on so many different types of artists to this show, because I know sometimes we as creatives wear different hats. So you will hear stories from directors, writers, actors, musicians, everyone under the sun. Hopefully one of these stories will inspire you. I thank you so much for spending some of your time with me. Let's get it going, y'all. Let's bring it on. Who we got today? Hello, everyone, and welcome to the F Your Fierce podcast. Today on the show, oh, what a treat we have. We've got Lydia Granerud. You guys, she has the most beautiful voice. And I'm not just saying that. Hold on, just like 1 second. Let's just listen.
And I drank a cup of tea, and I stared at all my neighbors with such uncertainty.
So good. It's a really fun episode talking about sexuality, gender, music, and creation. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And if you love this voice, which you should love this voice, please check out Lydian over on Instagram. And it's the easiest way to just like check out the Instagram, click on a link, and then you can follow her whole collection of music and just devour it like I do. So yeah, without further ado, let's bring out Lydia/Lydian. Let's do it. Welcome.
thank you, Ashley. I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
So happy to have you here. I'm a huge fan, not just of Lydia's music career, which we're going to talk about shortly. I got the privilege, and I mean, we've even got trucks driving by, so excited about it right now. I had the absolute privilege to work with Lydia as Pixel in my mega sensational The Art of Blowing It. So before we like kind of dive in to all of that, let's go ahead and talk about you. What is going on in the world of Lydia? What's up?
So I've been working on the next album for sure. So I've been doing a lot of writing during quarantine and like in the past year and a half. So we're sort of in pre-production for the next full-length album, and I haven't done that since Harlequin in 2017, I believe. So that's very exciting. And then I'm also working on a musical right now. So it's going to be like a cool, like folky Southern style story about queerness in the South, and a lot of like, you know, personal anecdotes and stuff, but looking to get a little not a little, a lot of theatrical with it, using some sort of elements of like mythology and all that, like how the Bible is so mythological and so elevated. I want to like include some of those elements in the story itself so that it's like feels magical. And yeah, I'm really excited about that.
I'm really excited about that too. That sounds amazing. So I kind of want to ask a couple questions about that. So you currently, I love Harlequin. I love that album
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
And that's your second album, right?
That's my first album.
Your first album. Okay. So that's your first album. And then you also came out with an EP this past, I want to say year, right?
Yeah, so the past year I've done like 5 different singles, just sort of like remotely working with my producer to kind of create whatever we could with staying isolated or complying with COVID stuff. So I put out Jane, which is really about the pandemic and starting over and feeling like when you lose everything and everything changes all at once, that there's this sense that you could start over as anyone. And what that feels like to like imagine to imagine who you could be when all of those sort of other people's opinions and invalidations are gone. And that was like my favorite project that I've worked on in the past year. And then I
It's
put
so powerful. That really is such a powerful message.
yeah, I feel like that was really, there's like the flip side of that is all the anxiety that creates, right? Like everyone was like, oh my gosh, what do I do without my routine, without my job, without my friends, without whatever, without being seen or perceived in that way. But and the flip, that's like was so intense for everyone. And then the flip side of it also was the perspective shift and the reorienting that we all got to do as well. And I think the song is more about that, being like, okay, wow, well, when I am alone by myself, who am I? What do I want? What does my life look like? And Jane is about like the person that might be.
I love it.
Thanks.
I love it. I love it. And that particular, because you had it as an EP, I believe, because I have it.
Yeah, they're just released as singles. They might show up kind of like an EP though, but they sort of all go together.
Okay.
I had yeah, there was I think on there is Trampoline just came out. That's sort of like what it feels like to feel like you're falling in love, but like not be ready to. That feeling of being double bounced in a trampoline, being like, oh, it's happening.
Oh my God.
And, the before the falling, right? The oh, that's what that feeling is. That's that connection. And then what was really fun, I think, also was I did a couple of live takes with just me and a piano in a church. And this was also a crazy COVID coincidence, was that we walked up to Judson Church in Washington Square Park and we're like, hi, can we use this space? And it's been empty, right? There's no services, there's no performances going on. And we asked and they said, sure, you can use it, go for it. And so we sat in this gorgeous, if anyone's ever been to Judson, also, donate to them. They're an amazing organization and like they really help artists create stuff, obviously. But we just sat in this gorgeous church with a grand piano and recorded some live takes of my song Love You Then. And that felt so special. That was like something that could never have happened outside of the pandemic.
Definitely.
Yeah. I was like, why is there this empty space in the middle of Manhattan, right? Well, it's because we're not there.
And who thinks to do that? Like, I love that you thought outside the box and it definitely paid off.
Thanks. I think that comes from just that my performance style, coming from like a theater background. I find that my performance style is so much better live. And I think that my tone comes through a lot better live than in person. I know probably most artists feel that way when you can get to have that sort of tangible live experience. But that's always what I'm looking to recreate, even when it's in a studio production. So, and because I grew up in the South and I have this crazy religious background, and it always feels super personal to integrate that into the context of recording itself or writing itself, or to like let that influence the way I perform and write and create stuff, like letting that environment sway the actual production of it.
So when you say you grew up in the South, where'd you grow up?
I grew up right outside of Nashville, Tennessee.
What? That's so cool. I grew up in Louisiana also.
Oh, nice.
So you grew up right outside of Nashville. What was that like growing up? Like, did you listen to country? Was that like an influence at all, like from a younger stage? Just because, I mean, Nashville's right there.
Totally. I didn't really like grow up listening to country. My mom, like, my dad's Swedish, my mom is from New Jersey, but I grew up in the South, and I have like my grandma's from Mississippi, so I have this sort of like hodgepodge cultural background. But I grew up going to church a lot, and that the music of church and hymns and worship music really has influenced the way I think I write. Now I'm not, the content is very different and I'm not like in that space anymore.
Mhm.
But I think you can hear it if you think about it, right?
Definitely, which is why I asked, because I wouldn't have been surprised if you listened to country as a kid and then the mixture of your religious back or going to church and having that element. I wasn't sure, just because you have such a richness to your voice, and some country singers have a similar richness, like a Reba McEntire or like a Winona Judd have like this richness. So I wasn't sure. That's why I asked.
Yeah, totally. That's sort of like, well, thank you, but that's
Yeah.
sort of like southern, slower, warmer tone, like hot weather climate, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It sounds like you're sweating.
That's the music we strive for. So at what point were you like, hey, I'm gonna move to New York and go do some stuff there? What's that journey look like?
Yeah, I wanted to be, well, growing up around so many songwriters and everyone I knew and still know plays the guitar and writes songs.
Okay.
I did not share much of my music growing up at all. So it was not something that I intended on pursuing. It was very like a personal thing that everyone does. It's like a group hobby. It's a community thing. It's a cultural thing. And so I just wanted to be an actor. And I decided to go to acting school, and I auditioned for NYU and I got in and I went
Nice.
and just sort of did the thing.
Mm-hmm. And what was it like whenever you got here? So, you know, and a lot of you out there, you all have your
Yeah, asking the good
process.
question. Yeah.
What was it like when you got here? Because we come with this dream of, I'm gonna be an actor, I'm gonna be a singer, I'm gonna go to New York. How many times have people said those three things right back to back?
Oh my God, yeah.
What was that like when you got here?
Well, I came to New York. Coming to New York was like walking out of a time capsule for me because I like came out of this super evangelical fundamentalist community. I didn't know what evolution was. I didn't really think being gay was a real thing. I was a super conservative virgin girl, right? Like I like walked into New York, I was like super culture shock.
Okay.
And so I think my first 3 years in New York were mostly like, it's just so much information coming at me, really on a personal level. Like I was going to school and learning how to be an actor at the same time, but it was just like, oh, I've never met anyone who's not super Christian. I have to unlearn so much. I have so many questions, and people are like surprised by the way I talk because I had all those sort of like Christian vocabulary and things and ideas that kind of, I think if you aren't familiar with them or grow up with them, it is kind of confusing. You're like, oh, what do you mean by that? What do you mean about, right, like if God is working through me, and right, all of those things that, and then I stepped away from the church through that process, realizing that there are plenty of people out there who are living who are beautiful spiritual people that are much better than not living for Jesus, right?
Mm-hmm. I feel as though I would hear some directors though say something very grand like that. God is working through me for this production.
Right, but they don't
black box
need it.
theater.
The difference is that they don't see some dude up there, like they don't think someone's in the room, and that is a big difference, right?
Got it.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's so many different versions of that sort of magnanimity or whatever, but it was wild. I changed so much in those first 3 years.
So during that time, were you writing music or were you just focusing on acting?
I was definitely doing both. Like music has always been just my personal outlet. It was not something I was sharing publicly, but I for sure writing was definitely a big part of my coming out too. Like it's my way of processing and my way of figuring out what I mean. I feel like a song doesn't begin until I have like a question to answer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, or something that feels really unfinished, and then I can like process and finish the thought through writing the song. I never go into writing with a plan or a certainty or like, oh, I'm gonna write a song about this,
Mm-hmm.
unless it's like an exercise. So all my music is, I think that was really when I started to write more, was when I started to understand myself more and come out and leave the church and figure everything out, was when I started really going to music first, because it was so personal. You know, acting, it requires so many other people and so many everyone else's words and everyone else's time and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, but music is something that I have full control over and autonomy over. Yeah.
And so there you are, you're using your outlet of being able to create. Were you sharing that with people, maybe like classmates, or you were just keeping it to yourself?
No, I was definitely sharing it with friends. It just was more intimate. It was just something, it was like a conversation rather than a production.
Yeah. So at what point were you like, hey, let's do a little bit more music? Or were you like, hey, let's do a little bit more acting? Like which one kind of shown through for a series? Because we know you get to creating music, but in that in between, because one of the things I try to paint with these podcasts is we're always looking for the next level, but sometimes the stuff that's in the middle is so important. And so that's why I asked this question, just to kind of give light to people of when they're in different phases, how to get from point A to point B. So when you're in school and you're writing music, you're doing that on the side. I guess whenever you finish with school, what kind of becomes the outlet that you start creating in the most?
I, right out of school, I think I definitely tried to do the audition scene first and tried to like do more acting stuff. I was in a musical, and that was really an amazing experience to do like little off-Broadway musicals.
What was it?
It was 1,001 Nights at the Atlantic Theater Company.
Ooh,
And it was written by Bobby Lopez and Adam Kaplan.
my
And so
gosh.
it's the guy who wrote Avenue Q and Frozen, obviously
Ah,
amazing.
my God,
But
that's amazing. You got that right out of school?
it was awesome, but I mean, it was non-union and also in the morning, right? So
Yeah, but
it
like,
sounds glamorous, but
wow.
it was less
Yeah.
glamorous. I was getting like a stipend and like building the set in the morning and like performing for like 3 to 7-year-olds at 9 o'clock, 6 days a week.
Oh my
So, and then working my restaurant job at night. So it was not like the big shebang, even though on paper it's really cool and it was like an amazing show and I loved it.
Mhm.
But certainly didn't feel like the big win, right? Like breaking through. Yeah, and I did like a few other things like short films, and I think that and auditioned for, yeah, like web series and stuff. And you came later. I think I was a little bit more understood more my journey a little more by the time we met. Um but yeah, like the more I came out also, the less sense my acting training started to mean to me, and like my sense of it, because I no longer fit the roles that I was sort of had practiced and rehearsed
Mhm.
being. I don't look like that anymore. I sort of moved away from this sort of femme sidekick vibe
Mhm.
to being very, very visibly queer, visibly masculine.
Mhm.
And that really changed the way I pursued acting and made auditioning harder. And like also my sense of identity was so delicate at that point
Mhm.
that I like couldn't really take the feedback. I was like not ready to be met with other people's perception of that. It needed to be nurtured a little more. And I think that's when I started moving more towards music and trying to pursue that more sincerely because I needed to have that time of like cultivating my sense of self in this new version of this new iteration of who I am.
And so what next? Like what did you decide to do next?
After I started writing music, or like what now?
Like what now? Like there you are.
Oh yeah. That's a good, really, right now I would love to do, I mean, I also now I am trying to get back into auditioning, and I'm excited about that because I'm coming at it from a place of like strength and confidence and understanding, you know, what my identity is and what I am comfortable with in the sort of natural shape shifting of acting. There is still like your own boundaries that you have to know, and I know what those are and can feel like I can actually tell someone, hi, I'm Lydia, this is what I want, this is who I am. Like if that fits in your world, cool, and if not, I'm fucking doing a lot of other stuff. Can I swear on this? Like, are we on live TV? Like,
Totally good. It's all good. Swear as much as you want. Fuck it.
okay. Yeah, I was like, is this a PG podcast? What? So yeah, so in the meantime, now I'm also working on this musical, which is like the most integrated version of both those things. And that's really exciting to me, just like on a personal level as well as a professional level.
Definitely. Are you collaborating with someone, or are you doing it solo in terms of like book and score, or are you just kind of
the first iteration? I think I want to be just me. I want to have a really strong sense of what I want and structure before I start collaborating with other people, but that will definitely happen. I think the book I will write more narratively. I'm not great at dialogue. I think I want to just know the plot and story and structure that is coming out of the songs I write. And then I will start integrating other composers, arrangers, musicians, and probably another writer to work on like structure and dialogue as far as the book goes. I'm excited about that, but it's like, once again, like I think I know myself at this point. It's like I need to really carve out how I feel about it first, and otherwise I can't articulate it down the line like what I was supposed to mean, you know. You have to like, and really honoring that as like, I just need more time. I'm not gonna like whip it out quick and like and I'm gonna be I'm so influenced by other people that I think that's something I've learned, is that I really need is to like just take longer, just like let that happen, you know.
Yeah, it's good to let things marinate. Sometimes it's just like we want that instant gratification, but like slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah,
and I mean, you have
literally.
such a great topic, so I can't wait to I'm looking forward to seeing the journey that you have going on with this. I guess I guess we should probably talk about the art of blowing it, maybe.
Let's do it. I think we
Yeah.
should.
So what because the art of blowing it, when I was writing it, I knew that because I've worked with Sidekick Productions for a really long time, and we've had a lot of queer characters in our shows, Skeleton Crew and Demon Doctor. From the very beginning, we had a bear couple, and one of the main supporting characters came out as trans, and we let that come in with the storyline. And so Skeleton Crew's always been a lot more into like sex positive and kink and like really supporting all of those things. And so whenever it came time to me writing the art of blowing it, I wanted to kind of look at what was happening now and what kind of characters I could write for. And it's tricky because being I don't know if I'd call myself cis, but I guess considered I'm more on the spectrum of like, demisexual. If you can make me, you get my brain, I'm good.
Yes.
But anyway, I'm going on a tangent about my sexuality. That's not the purpose. The purpose was, I wanted to make sure that I had characters that were telling interesting stories, but not just stories like that we'd seen exactly before. And so I wanted to, you know, take a stab at writing a non-binary character. And when it came to casting, you know, I auditioned everyone that I possibly could. I wasn't, you know, completely married to, oh, it has to be a woman who's non-binary just because the character happened to have been, you know, born a girl. I wasn't like, that had to be a non-negotiable. I was like, we'll have it be open. But when I saw your tape, I was like, oh my God, like this, yes, this is the exact vibe of everything that I want and need for Pixel. Like this was just, and then your comedic timing once we got on set, your comedic timing, like you knew you were on an office-based show, like you were on The Office, like you give like these gym looks at the camera, and I'm just like, he's the best.
Thank you so much. It was so fun. I had such a blast on that set. It was killer.
It was. What was it like for you playing a story of someone who's non-binary, especially since there aren't that many non-binary characters out there? What was that like for you? Did you take experiences from people that you know, or was it just like you reading it on the page and you just kind of knew who this person was?
It was I had just started that journey of like understanding my gender identity, you know, and so it was exciting and pretty scary for me. Actually felt rather vulnerable. I know I don't think I necessarily came off that way, but privately I was like, oh yeah, no, that was like definitely in the very beginning of understanding my gender identity, which is I've come to, you know, I'm sort of always, this is a theme, right? It's like it's always so private and personal, and I think I just like slowly emerge into it. Like now I identify as non-binary and my pronouns are she, her, mostly because I don't necessarily feel liberated by that language. Like they is great, but it's that's not where I feel the most seen necessarily in the word or in even vocabulary. It's more of that private understanding and like the way I am in my body. But it was fun because it was like, also Pixel was like, had the power, right? It was a character that had power, and honestly, and wasn't weak, and was honestly kind of like a bitch sometimes too, like a little, like had a little snark to it. And that was like writing a nuanced character, a character that has flaws and you love them, is a non-binary character, but it's not about being non-binary. It's just there. It was super liberating. It's the only time I've ever played a part that fit that easy. So I don't think there was a whole lot of questioning to for me. I was like, oh, I actually can just walk into this role and have a lot of fun with it and not have to think about whether or not I'm transforming enough, right?
Yeah.
To which, you know, looking back when I was playing other roles, there was so much more confusion in that than I think I realized at the time, and insecurity and like lack of confidence. And so to play a character like Pixel and get to have those relationships and that status while still feeling like myself as a character and as an actor, was really awesome and really liberating. And I really appreciate you writing that and making space and then being really intentional with the casting.
Thank you. That makes me so happy. I knew at the get-go I wanted to have someone in the show telling a story, but also being there for Emmy as, you know, a friend that's just like, look, your BS has got to stop.
Absolutely.
And like,
It's fun, yeah.
and you just like delivered time and time again. And I'm so happy that you felt super comfortable in the role. You looked super comfortable.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because I occasionally look at people's Instagrams, and I had scrolled through yours, and I have to say the way that you look now in terms of your styling, you have such a
Yeah.
confidence that
Thank
comes
you.
off from you. Just
Thank
such a
you.
confidence that, and of course, who looked super confident 10 years ago, but some people do. You look
Sure.
so confident now, just like on in all of your pictures. There's just this confidence that just like shines through, and your beauty that you had, no matter what length your hair was.
Right,
The
right,
beauty
right.
is just you gorgeous. But it was just cool because I was like, wow, that's what confidence looks like. Like even your album cover, just has such, and all of the photos that you did with your I mean both album covers, there's just such a great confidence, which I think is so important because that helps you stand out when people are like looking for someone. They're looking for
Mhm.
that confidence, and you have it. It's awesome.
Thank you. That means a lot to me
Yeah.
because that, I worked like that. I like worked hard for that, and my younger self was so
Mm.
on at 110,000%
Yeah.
all the time. So to be able, like, oh, I'm getting a little emotional. To be able to like, yeah, have it like be seen that like I do know who I am and I have made, you know, sacrifices in order to find that and like find that grounding and make sure that and not sacrifice my well-being or sense of self for whatever ideology or people or trauma, like all of that nonsense and bullshit. So yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Totally. I 100% mean it. And I just want all of you out there, I don't know what you got planned today, but I guarantee you're going to have a period where you need to listen to a little music while you're doing whatever you're doing. So I highly suggest you check out Lydia. Now, how can people find you? Like, what's the easiest way for someone to be able to find you and find your music?
Yeah, I'm not popular enough for it to be super easy to just Google my like my music. It's if you look up, honestly, it's Instagram,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
at Lydian Music, Lydian Music. Um, I'll come up, it's a little black and white icon. All my Spotify links are there. On Spotify, if you look up Lydian Harlequin, the album, then it comes up immediately. That's awesome. Lydia Granerid. If you Google me, like you'll find it.
Mm-hmm.
Granerid if you Granered, like I'm the only person with that last name. So
Well, your
that
family was like, we're not taking it.
literally, they're like, this is clunky.
Where'd
Yeah,
you come up with Lydian?
Lydian. Well, Lydian, I was thinking about Lydia, just like doing Lydia, but that's a band already, so it's kind of taken. And I was trying to think of something that encompassed, and I love my name. I love Lydia. I think it's a beautiful name, but
Mhm.
it does not encompass that sort of like gender fluidity and like thing that it's very feminine. And
Mhm.
I think that Lydian just kind of felt very me and very sort of like both and neither, right? Like
Mhm.
something in the middle, and it feels very strong and like grounded, and but still with that sort of, it's still my name.
Mhm.
It's not someone else. It just feels like a statement of who I am. So that was it. And also, you can Google my name, but no one's gonna remember how to spell it. So it was also kind of like trying to move away from Lydia Granerid because yeah, it's just like difficult.
Yeah, Lydian is a really good move. It's a really
Thank
good
you.
move. I like it. It's very catchy.
Thanks. I really like agonized over that for a long time. I was like, what do I do?
It looks good on graphics too. I like it a lot. I like it.
Appreciate it.
Those are my 2 cents.
Yeah.
So, well, everyone, that seems like it's all our time that we have for today. But I on the podcast, I always like to ask everyone, because we talk a lot about performing, and the question that I ask every performer that comes on this show is, when you feel fear start to come into your own body, your own mind, your own space, your own life, what do you do to deal with it, combat it, embrace it? What do you do? How do you deal with fear?
I deal with fear in an artistic sense. I deal with fear by writing, by journaling, by like going back to asking myself questions of like, where is that coming from, and or getting it out in poetry or in music. But in like a very literal sense, I deal with fear by like being physical, by like moving my body. Like I think that fear is it's hormonal, you're like, your body's literally getting an injection of adrenaline and cortisol running through your blood and needs to go somewhere. So like, and when I feel scared, I feel it in my bones, right? So I'll run, I move it out, I get it go like move through it.
I love it. That's such a great answer. That's great. So get to running, everybody. Next time you get scared, run.
Literally, your fight or flight is literal.
Yours is flight.
Yes.
But I like that. I like the way that you've tied that. Lydia, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Ashley.
I really appreciate it. What'd you think of the show? I'm so happy you're still here. You made it all this way. What a treat. What a joy. I'm so grateful. So thank you again for listening to this episode. If you have not followed us on the social stuff, do it. Like fyourfears.com has all the links, as well as just the F Your Fears podcast. That guy is driving really fast so he can go to his computer at his house and make sure that he's subscribing to everything. So you should too. And if you didn't hear that sound, I did. Anyway, thanks so much for listening. Have a great day.
I feel bored and disconnected. Not a fever, just infected. Still the same old desires. Still the same old pain. But I'm dangling on a wire over a mountain range. I feel empty and unraveled. My body hums as if I've traveled, but I sat on the porch step and I drank a cup of tea, and I stared at all my neighbors with such uncertainty. I thought that would matter by now seems to have washed away with the rain. And I could change my name, become a fisherman in the Philippines. And I could learn to bake bread and insist you call me Jane. Oh, I insist you call me Jane. Start a new life in a new home. Look at family pictures as if they were my own. I'm a landslide in waiting. got my dream job, it was crazy. 8 shows a week, a book deal and a baby. Flew to Spain, all in a work trip. Wrote a song in old Pompeii and took my lover on a sailboat picnic for a day. Oh, I thought that would matter by now. Seems to have washed away with the rain. And I could change my name